Name is Anna Tran, and the brand that I own is called For the Love of Anna, and it specializes primarily in handmade, couture, made-to-order corset tops, as well as just a bit of custom-made things from dresses to hair accessories as well, but mainly a lot of corsets. For the Love of Anna, I feel like started really organically. I was already sewing and making clothes for myself and my friends, and it slowly became this thing where people were asking like, "Oh, can you make one for me?" or "Where did you get that?" And so from then, the business started back in May 2020, so when I was in grade 11 of high school, so before OCAD, but it was during like COVID, so like we had a lot more free time at home, and so I think that's kind of what made me more motivated to start the Instagram page for the Love Anna, and then also just starting to sell on like platforms such as like Depop as well. But OCAD definitely played a huge role because it gave me the language and confidence to think about clothing as more than just fashion, but also as design and research and storytelling. And being surrounded by people who were also experimenting made me realize that I didn't just have to follow a traditional fashion path. I think definitely yes, because there were like a lot of school projects where I was encouraged to think about things in like a more entrepreneurial sense. And I think just growing up, my mom would always tell me that like I would be like 5 or 6 and I would be sitting in the living room and like trying to sell things that I owned to my mom for like a penny or like 10 cents or something. And I think I had always had that entrepreneurial side of me of wanting to make things and like DIY little crafts and then just like trying to sell them off. And so I think that's what it had always just been in me. Primarily, yes. In terms of when it comes to the brand, it is a lot of sewing projects and clothing and hair accessories. But in terms of the other artistic things that I do and like the crafts that I do, it's a big range of things because I did go to OCAD studying environmental design and interior design. So a lot more furniture based than, of course, like color wall theory and things like that. So I feel like my creativity spans a pretty large amount of realms and not just like one specific category. I think that definitely there was a point where I realized that for me, it was just clothing was kind of one part of a bigger conversation. So I cared just as much about where the materials came from and who was involved and what the piece meant to the person wearing it. So I didn't want to really just make products, but I really wanted to focus more on creating connections as well. And so I think clothing is a really great way and probably one of the easiest ways to really be able to converse with people. And so I think that's what I would focus my brand on right now, and I continue to focus my brand on. I mean, it's honestly one of the hardest balances. Like I try to be really transparent, of course, with myself and then also with customers about what things cost and why. And I think that definitely I'd rather grow slowly and more sustainably than compromise a lot of my values just to scale quickly. And so it is a lot of pressure, but I try my best to be as transparent as possible and like remember my values that I had started off with as well. Yeah, there's so many. There are moments where it'd be, I think, like to categorize it, it would be that like there's a lot of moments where it would be cheaper or faster to do things in a specific way, or like sewing it a certain way, or buying a cheaper fabric or a cheaper alternative. But I would say that throughout all those times, I've chosen not to do that because it just usually means, and then the compromise with that, it just usually means accepting a little bit of smaller margins or longer timelines when it comes to the project. I was drawn to them because they already exist. and like they have been existing. And there's something really powerful about giving new life to materials that would otherwise be forgotten or wasted. And I also really love like anything vintage or anything that's like got a bit of history to it. So I love that each fabric has its own history and has its own memories. And I think that adds to making every piece that I do make and that I do sell feel one of a kind, which I'm sure, and I've heard as well from a lot of clients, that's something that they really like as well. I think the main big challenge is consistency. So it's a really big one because you never know how much fabric you'll
Mhm.
get or if you'll ever find it again. And there's also like there can be a lot of flaws to the fabric itself. So you kind of have to, even though you have a set pattern that you can cut out of for like a shirt or something, you still sometimes have to design around them because the fabric is flawed in certain ways or things like that. It definitely does. I would say that it does completely change it. The fabric usually leads the design instead of the other way around. So it really, in a way, though, I think it's kind of fun and it forces creativity and flexibility, which I actually really enjoy. Sustainability also means a lot of emotional durability. So making pieces people actually want to keep and care for. So that shows up in slow production and how everything's made to order. So all the made to order practices, as well as fair pricing and transparent pricing. And then just a lot of thoughtful collaboration, because that's the great thing about for Love Anna is that every piece is made to order. So it allows for a lot of space to be had between me and the client and being able to customize a lot of things and being able to collaborate and make sure that whatever they end up with and receive is something that they do really truly love and they will cherish and keep for forever, really. Normally, how I price my work is it starts with, of course, the cost of the materials. And so you have to think about that in consideration, and then the hourly costs. And you would just really like, I track how long it takes to make something from the creative process to the actual production phase and all that stuff. And so considering all of that, that's usually how it ends up with the end cost of the item. As someone that runs a socially conscious business on my own, it's really just about wearing so many hats at once. So I'm the designer and the maker, marketer, accountant, just like everything. And so it can be really exhausting, especially when you also are hand in hand trying to make sure that you're doing everything ethically. There were a lot of moments of burnout every now and then where I questioned if it was this was sustainable for me. So like someone that, is in school or, someone that has school but also has part-time jobs on the side as well on top of this.
Right.
I think it was more so it's just like moments where that came from me feeling like I was doing too much at once. I would say like community, like support from friends and clients and other creatives reminded me why I started in the first place. And that's where like OCAD comes into a big play because you're surrounded by artists, creatives, and designers, and you kind of don't feel like you're alone in the
Right.
burnout or, like feeling like you want to give up or you're unmotivated. And so that really helped me push through for sure in those moments. It usually starts with sourcing, so going to suppliers, dead stock warehouses, or thrift charity shops. And then from there, I sit with the material, I sketch and sample and test. And, a lot of pieces are hand finished as well. And so from there, I make patterns for everything. And then, you have to alter the patterns to certain sizes and thinking about that as well. And then from there, you just create a bunch of mock-ups from different fabrics as well. And then the selling happens through mainly my Instagram account, as well as my portfolio website as well every now and then. And then I would say like a lot of since starting, now it's been, word of mouth, as well. So that kind of is the finished piece is it goes from sourcing, then I create it, production, and then selling the product. and then it's delivered, the finished piece. So I would say like I enjoy the most the making process, of course, and also like the conversations. So being really hands-on with the creation process, but then also being able to like almost form these friendships with my clients is one of my favorite parts. And then the most stressful would just be like admin and pricing, which I'm sure like a lot of like you as well, I'm sure can understand the way that it's figuring out how to value your work without undercutting yourself. It's a big thing
Yeah.
that creatives kind of have to deal with. Start small and start honestly. So you don't need everything figured out. Just really your values and let those kind of guide your decisions, because that's ultimately what you're going to be going back to at the end of the day if you're burnt out or you need some motivation. That for sure, especially I know me, I love to like start something and finish it like as soon as possible, but I think I've learned and I wish that I knew starting out that it's okay to move slowly and that sustainability also includes being sustainable to yourself and taking care of yourself. Trying not to do everything at once, and you know just focus on your own path and remember not to like compare yourself to other brands or other artists or other creatives in a negative way because you obviously it's a good way to motivate yourself and inspire yourself more, but you want to make sure that by looking at other creatives you feel inspired and motivated rather than intimidated or put down.